For Sentinel.com, this is Ira Winderman with your latest Ask Ira Miami Heat mailbag. Our first question today comes from Levon, who goes, letting Gerald Green go, was it a good or a bad decision? Levon, I would put it this way. More than anything, I think it was a necessary decision. With the promise of Justice Winslow, the progress of Josh Richardson, and the financial outlay to Tyler Johnson, all three are going to have to play this coming season and in feature roles. So it could have turned out anyway like it did in the playoffs, when Gerald's minutes were limited, and that's not really the position you want to put a player of Gerald's NBA tenure. He worked as hard as any player with the Heat last season, and honestly, if he had made more three-point shots, I think he still would have been around. Instead, the Heat sort of moved on to the annual flavor of the month, James Johnson and Derek Williams, to see maybe what could be called there. But with 17 players under contract to the Heat at this point, I think it became apparent to Gerald as well that it was time to move on. I wouldn't label Gerald's as a failed experiment, but rather a marriage that did not endure. Such typically is the case with veterans on minimal scale deals. Our next question comes from Juan Carlos, who says, I have only purchased Dwyane Wade jerseys. Aside from Hassan Whiteside, which jersey is going to last longer than a season? Juan Carlos, I would put it this way. I'm not even sure about Hassan Whiteside. I'm not sure at this point if the Heat look at him more as commodity, possibly for a trade down the road, than as franchise mainstay. He has to prove as much. I think Justice Winslow is the type of player you could look at and say, go ahead, buy his jersey, he'll last. Although even then, he could be looked at as a trade sweetener. Same thing possibly with Goran Dragic. The player who might endure might just be Josh Richardson. With his rookie scale deal, not a lot of money really to send out in the trade, but a player who's shown he has a high upside when it comes to growing as a player. You may want to go out and buy that Josh Richardson jersey. And our last question today comes from Jake, who says, Dwyane Wade would not accept the type of work with us deal due to ego and branding. Dirk Nowitzki is humbling and still a basketball and team player first. Jake, I think that's a simplification, just like it is to report that Dirk received $50 million over 2 years. Actually, he received $25 million for this coming year with a guaranteed $5 million for the following season. To be honest, I don't think at Dwyane Wade's stage of his career, he was willing only to take $30 million total. Dirk's contract is sort of like one of those NFL deals where it sounds like more money than it ultimately might be. And then again, I don't think this was about money. I think this was about a fractured relationship that for whatever reason, the Heat reached that point with Dwyane Wade. So I don't think you can point at Dirk's deal or what someone else took and say, hey, Dwyane should have done the same. Different circumstances for different players. Those are today's 3 questions. We'll be back tomorrow with 3 more. For SunSentinel.com, I'm Ira Winderman.